It has been too long since we put out any updates about what's going on here on the grass-fed homestead, so we're going to take care of that right now. You guys don't mind if I join you for a moment, do you? Won't be interrupting breakfast? Good. Alright. As many of you guys know, since the summer I've been having to downsize my sheep head count. At our peak this year we had about 24 sheep, about 11 or 12 of which were lambs born here this year. And now I'm down to 7 total. These two guys right here are my last 2 ram lambs, and these are going to be our lamb meat for the winter. These guys are on the small side. This guy, not as bad as him. He's definitely way too small for his age, but he's just a little on the small side. He's not bad. I sold my bigger ram lambs to people that wanted a higher quality ram lamb for breeding. Of course, these guys didn't quite make the cut, so they got to stay here as feeder lambs. You are really cute though, I must say. I don't have a harvest date set for them yet, but it's probably going to be at the end of October or early November. Of the 7 remaining sheep, there were the 2 ram lambs I just showed you, and then the 5 ewes. So we still have Annabelle here, and Penelope, Sage, and behind me over here is Clover and Fiji. Hi, Clover. You might be wondering, where's Connie? Where's Maggie? Where's Connie's beautiful lamb from this year, who was not named? They went back to Tess. And Tess is everyone's favorite shepherdess that's featured here on the Grass-Fed Homestead with some frequency. And Tess was where Connie and all of the breeding ewes came from. So Tess, knowing that I was trying to reduce the stock count here, had offered to take Connie and Maggie and then Connie's lamb back for her, and they would continue on in her breeding program. And this was a really good option for me because I didn't have to worry about finding a really good home for them and wondering how they're gonna be treated. They're just going back home from where they came, and we all know the quality of care Tess gives her sheep. Sadly, Clover and Fiji here are both not gonna be bred again, and they will be cold. As you can still see here, though Fiji's been weaned for quite some time, she's still really bony, and she's been getting high quality alfalfa all summer and fall, and she's way better looking than she was at weaning time, but she's just too old. She can't keep up with the production. And Clover, she is not too old. Clover's only gonna be 3 this next spring, but she was not designed to be bred either, sadly, and she can't keep up. Her body mass index. Our grazing program went really well this year. We had the most head count that we've ever had here. It was about 24 sheep. Having 24 sheep on the property was the most we've had. Last year, I think we topped out at around 22, and the year before, it was just 4 of them. Yet this year, I had to do the least amount of hay feeding throughout the summer because we had such prolific grass growth this year. So the 2 seasons prior, every day I was hay feeding. No matter how much grass was out, they were always getting hay because there just wasn't quite enough. But this year, there were times I went weeks without giving any hay because there was enough here on the land to support the animals, which was awesome. And you may be asking, well, why don't you just reduce your head count and then you can stretch it further? Well, the reason why I was going with a little bit higher stocking density is because I was trying to hasten the nutrient cycle. So the more disturbance I can get in an area, the more fertility I can put down in the area, the faster I can rejuvenate the landscape here. Of course, the grazing season is over now. The pastures are done for the year. So the girls are hanging out in their cattle panel paddock here where I can easily administer them their hay. As for the shelters, I think Willow is responsible for the destruction of the tarp on the one on the right, but I absolutely love having Willow here, so it's totally worth it. The chicken situation this summer and fall got pretty out of hand. We had a lot of our copper Moran hens go broody, and they were going off in the woods and hiding in the barn and all kinds of things like that, hiding in nooks and crannies, and they were sitting on anywhere from 12 to 15 eggs at a time, and they were all hatching. So just about every week and a half to 2 weeks, I was getting another dozen chicks hatched here. Those of you guys who follow our Instagram feed are a little bit familiar with this because I've posted the pictures throughout the summer and fall of some of the chicks being hatched. You are subscribed to our Instagram feed, right? If you're not, head on over to Instagram. It's just Grass-Fed Homestead. Look that up, you'll find us. My rough estimation was that we had probably about 125 chickens running around the property. So I started catching cockerels as I could. I would lure them with feed and catch them and harvest them just to keep the numbers down. And then finally I started advertising them on Facebook for people to just come take chickens. So I have my John Soskovich chicken tractor over here that we use for our meat birds that I've been housing the ones I've been catching. These are the wild feral free-ranging ones that I lure in here with food, or I've been able to catch them at night when they're sleeping and I throw them in there. As I fill up the tractor, I have people come by and just go and take as many chickens as they want, kind of deal, just to keep the numbers down. And through that, I've also wound up selling our Swedish flower hen flock with the rooster. We have one flower hen left here because she got picked on by the others and her backside was a little bloody. I didn't want to sell her in that condition, but when she's fully healed up, she'll be going. And then yesterday, in fact, I had another buyer for our lavender Orpington flock, except for the rooster. He's still here. I still have a dozen or so of the feral chickens running around the property, which is fine. It's a little bit more manageable of a number. And then we still have a couple dozen of the chickens from our main flock still around. Willow, come say hi. Willow, come here. Neither Willow nor Blue enjoy the camera. Come here, Willow. Come on. Come on, girl. Come say hi. Come on. I know, the camera's scary. It adds 10 pounds. that wraps up the outside portion of the Homestead updates, but there's still something to show you on the inside. Come on. This here is a 5-gallon bucket full of North Idaho knapweed honey. Wrapped around it is what's called the bee blanket, and we'll talk about this in just a minute. Before I do, I owe some of you guys an apology. A couple weeks ago when I got this honey, I put it on our web store and sent out an email to our email subscribers, let them know that the honey is back in stock. And nearly all of it sold immediately. I think there's actually one left right now. The apology is for you guys who have ordered and have not received your orders yet. I switched to a plastic container instead of using the glass mason jars for the storing of the honey. The reason for this is because I had multiple orders that shattered during shipping that I had to eat the cost on. I tried to get reimbursement from the post office because all the packages are insured. However, my claims were denied because I didn't actually have physical possession of the packaging that I had to send in and prove that it happened. So I switched to these 3-pound plastic containers, so this will hold 3 pounds of honey. Problem is I had to order them, and it took a little bit longer than I expected to get them in stock. And then there was a personal tragedy. A really dear friend of mine who was like a mother to me died quite unexpectedly, and she went back to Atlanta for her funeral, and she was a really, really big supporter of what we were doing here on the homestead, and a really big supporter of the grass-fed homestead on YouTube. In fact, she's appeared in our videos a few times. I was in Atlanta all last week, and these arrived the day before I left. So I wasn't able to fulfill these orders in a really timely fashion based on these occurrences. But as you can see now, I have my bee blanket around the bucket. This bee blanket is essentially a heating pad that's designed to wrap around a 5-gallon bucket, and it warms the honey just enough to where it makes it where it can bottle easily, because honey itself is just too thick at room temperature and doesn't pour real well. But if you warm it slightly, it will become less viscous and be able to get in these bottles much more easily. But it doesn't warm it too much to where it starts breaking down the enzymes and the valuable properties of the honey. So it's not getting pasteurized with this heat. This is a really low passive heat. Because the heat is very slow and passive, it does take a couple days for this to warm through completely. So I hope to have this done warming tomorrow. I can start bottling and fulfilling orders throughout this coming week. Another update regarding the honey, this one's exciting, is that the beekeeper friend of mine that's getting me this honey actually was able to set aside the honey extracted from the hives that were on our property, and I'm gonna get that honey probably in the next few weeks. It's probably gonna be late October. I'm gonna get that in stock. So I will have honey that is 100% from the grass-fed homestead and not from other farms here in the North Idaho Panhandle. This is exciting for 2 reasons. One, it's coming from our property, guaranteed. That is so awesome. But number 2 is I believe the honey quality is actually better from up here. So this is the honey I got from last year's harvest from up in this area, this portion of the Panhandle. You see how light it is, and this was really floral. It was a very delicate dessert-like honey. This was really good honey. This is some honey left over from the last batch I sold. So if you bought honey from me and received it already, this is the honey from that batch. And you see how much darker it is. This honey came from further south in the Panhandle. Though it is still a knapweed honey, the flavor profile was different enough to it that I felt that the use for it would be a little bit different, where I think this lighter honey goes great drizzled on a dessert. This had more of an earthy, deeper, darker flavor to it, which was still really good, but it seemed to be a little bit stronger and not really applicable for drizzling on dessert. This was really good if you're cooking something or adding it to bread for sweetening, if you're baking, that kind of stuff. And I'm pleased to say that the honey that's in here right now, the ones that you guys just ordered and should be on the way to you soon, this is more of the lighter stuff. And again, the honey that I'm about to get that came 100% from our property is also the lighter honey. So I'm just excited about the really high quality product that we're going to be able to offer you guys.